Good evening, folks. I hope you all are doing well and staying cool this summer. Awesome. Okay. I apologize for the delay in my podcast due to my unforeseen events. However, I am glad to be back today. I would like to talk to you on the topic of corruption in my state, which is in Nagaland and in the northeast part of India. And also, I'll briefly touch on corruption in Mozambique because I feel like there are things that we can compare and contrast and hopefully take away some lessons. So, let me go ahead and define what is corruption. Okay. All right. Corruption is defined as the abuse of public office for private gain, through embezzlement, which is pretty much theft or misappropriation of public funds, favoritism, nepotism, the practice among those them, jobs, dishonest or illegal behavior. So these are according to the Oxford Dictionary, okay, and the World Bank. So what is corrupt again? So corrupt is defined as willing to act dishonestly in return for money or personal gain. Evil or immoral according to the Oxford Dictionary. Okay, so let's take a look at Mozambique. Okay, the case with Mozambique, as I've already mentioned to you, we're going to compare and contrast with other international countries with Nagaland. So the Republic of Mozambique is located resources. Population is about 32 million, so that's about 3.2 crores, and Nagaland is, I think, according to 2022, it's about 22.8 lakhs of population, and majority of them are Bantu people. Okay, so Christianity is the dominant religion, along with minorities who follow Islam and the African traditional religions. So this is very similar to Nagaland due to the fact that Christianity is the major religion, and also we have different kind of animism and other kinds of traditional religion, but it's very minor. Like it's minority, I suppose. So Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world. Okay. And has consistently ranked among the 10 worst performers in the UNDP Human Development Index, which measures income, educational attainment, and longevity. See, I don't want to compare Nagaland with a country due to the fact that Nagaland is if you see the recent news, for example, I don't know if you've heard about the print, but the print published an article titled "Nagaland Emerges as the worst performing state in Northeast." So this is according to the SDG index. Experts blame insurgency, unquote. So this article was published by the print on 4th September 2021. According to the study, Nagaland performed poorly in 6 goals. Okay, pretty much. Number 1 is poverty, health, and well-being. Okay. Then you have affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, industry and innovation and infrastructure. So, for example, if you live sort of here in my hometown, as I am, just like me, you will realize that electricity is very bad. In summertime, with temperatures rising for women is also a concern, especially in the evenings. Okay, and businesses cannot function properly without electricity. Okay, so why can't our government provide the basic necessities? For example, electricity, water supply. See, we don't have water supplies. We have wells, but we don't have a proper, like, legitimate water supply. We don't have malls, right? Summertime, we need malls. We don't have malls. There's a lack of hygiene, okay, especially in Dimapur town areas. I don't know about Kohima, but in Dimapur town area, especially, in the police department opposite to SBI main branch, it's terrible. It's almost like something is dead out there, and we barely have public access to clean bathrooms, okay, drinking water, etc. So the list sort of goes on, okay, and this is why I'm pointing it out. I think one of the major things also that is under radar in my radar is unemployment among youths and young loans. Practices with Nagaland, like I've already mentioned to you, there are very similar cases. Okay, for example, all right, in Mozambique, okay, the political leaders and the senior government officials, all right, so from all the way from the president or the CM, you would call it, to his or her associates, and then are also very extensively and openly involved in private businesses and enterprises that are reliant, both national and international, okay? At the lower end of the political hierarchy, so for example, now you go down, which is like the district, the towns, the villages, the, I don't know, maybe Gamburas, you call it here in Gamburas, or, Kales, right? And the party, the party and the state nexus, they're all in play, by the way, with influential party members and traditional authorities. Like you have chiefs and queens, which is in Africa, with their sub leaders. So these are increasingly co-opted by the state through their receipt of monthly allowances and other benefits that they get. So overall, okay, the cost of corruption in Mozambique between 2002 to 2014 has been estimated at around 4.9 US billion dollars, which is a very, with serious implications of the state budget and social services. So basically, it is taking out from the public's exchequer, and they're using it for their own gains. Okay, so similarly, according to the local papers here in Nagaland, right, and all India radio news, Nagaland CM okay, on the budget, and I'm sure you must have read it too in the news. So, which is very unfortunate. Where is the public's funds going? So that's the problem here. Here's another example of corruption in government in Mozambique. So, for example, in Mozambique, there was an Indian bus company. Okay, in 2011, through the Ministry of Transport and Communication, bought 250 buses from an Indian company. Okay, so these were all distributed throughout the country, but while 50 were delivered to the Maputo municipality, the rest were never put to use. Well, the president of Mozambique was the main shareholder, which we received about $200 million, okay, for the purchase and the maintenance of the buses. So while people knew about the president's involvement in this whole private business ventures, which is actually very common even in Nagaland, okay, such practices were openly questioned. Were questioned, sorry. Partly why? Because his position and authority was the last say. So people were, I suppose, people were afraid to even point out, who were the culprits. So why I say people were afraid? Because there are consequences for revealing the identities of the corrupt officials. All right, and there's a reason for that. People shush their mouth. So, for example, the best known corruption case in Mozambique involved about 34 million US dollars. So this related to frauds by the banks, okay, and a number of senior government officials in Mozambique, okay. This was during 2000, okay. So this case involved the assassination of, so there was a assassination of a very reputable economist who attacked the government's corruption. The second one who got assassinated was a journalist who wrote about an article regarding this, the fraud of $34 million, which was carried out by the government of Mozambique. He was shot. I don't know how he was killed, but he was brutally murdered. Then the director of the bank, who had threatened to reveal the identity of the corrupt officials, were also attacked. I don't know if he died or not, but yeah, they were suppressed in many ways. So, okay, let me go ahead to the Nagaland narrative again here. So you have the road conditions in Nagaland. Okay, in many parts of Nagaland, especially in the remote parts of Nagaland, is very bad and is very neglected. Okay. So why I say this, because these are my observations, and I've seen it in pictures and medias and videos and social media and all that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So I remember during COVID lockdown, okay, when the government was sending people back to their respective districts and villages, the service given by the government was very poor according to reports. Okay. So corruption in the education sector, okay. So let's go back to Mozambique again, and then I'll bring back Nagaland case again here. So in a case involving directors of education in the province of Nampula and Cabo Delgado in 2011, okay, it was discovered that salary sheets including a large number of ghost staffs. So ghost staffs are pretty much people who come to school, who don't come to school, who don't teach, but they still get the government's salary. So this was happening in Mozambique. Okay, the salaries were being channeled directly into the accounts of provincial directors, as well as the head of district level departments, and so on and so forth. Similarly, in Nagaland, this is what happened. We also see in the news about the misappropriation of funds in school education, right? School education department, and the high number of government teachers who have been very poor in their attendance record, and some actually don't even show up. Okay, leaving the students to fend for themselves. So during lockdown, when we started doing online classes and fees were not being paid, there was basically no help from the government, and especially for private schools. So this is very unfortunate, by the way. We can also see the corruption in government regarding the stadium in Dimapur. I think there were some political groups in Dimapur that had pointed out about the case of the stadium in Dimapur, where we can see that the funds that were meant for the public use for sports and recreation has been neglected for many years. Where did it go? Okay, so that's our question here. Another example about the misappropriation of government funds or initiatives, or just being creative. A government being creative is the hospitals and medical colleges in Nagaland. Many suffered during pandemic because we didn't have a good facility. And I guess there was not much research too, I think. So, what if we hit the next pandemic again? Where are people going to go? I know there's sort of a research, a medical research center or something like that has been inaugurated, or that has been already started construction. But if you go to referral hospital here in Dipupar area, okay, there are plenty of ghost buildings which are not in use. These are like huge, like compound in referral hospital, huge buildings which are empty. These could be facilitated and renovated for further developments, if that was the case. So we're in this cycle of habitual, corruption. The layman or the public are so immune to such corrupt practices that they do not perceive it as a crime. Rather, it is a part of their everyday lives, especially in rural villages and remote places. They do not understand the link between voting for one-time bribery, okay, and causing an entire generation to fall apart, and backwards, unfortunately. So see, for example, poor people, okay, they give small amounts to have their children move up to a class, maybe, okay. We have backdoor appointments for government jobs. We have unmerited people pass interviews, and those with merit being rejected, okay. This was actually told to me by one of my good friend, so gaining of employment or winning elections without any merit, okay. Non-locals gaining access to rations. What is this whole business with free rations to non-locals, which are purely meant for the people here in Nagaland or Dimapur or wherever wherever your district or your town is? And scheduled tribe quotas, and benefits being taken away by non-locals too. This is actually very common. Obtaining IDs, okay, drivers without passing their driver test and speeding in the highways, files being manipulated and delayed, gaining contracts based on corrupt practices, proof so this which is the public don't voice out. Many of our leaders in the system has failed us in many aspects, okay, and I've already mentioned to you, people should voice out their sufferings and needs and gain their ground. You have a voice and a seat at the table. We need to design the Nagaland that we want for today and for the next generation. So this is my humble appeal as a young man. Choose the right candidate. Look out for their vision, their accountability, and let's all vote very, very wisely in this coming election in 2023. Anyways, I think that is it for now, and I hope you guys like my podcast, and please feel free to comment down below. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions, or you can email me or DM me as well. All right, well, I think this is it for now, and hopefully I will see you in my next podcast.